I should have known the night would end in blood. The Velvet Rouge wasn't the kind of place where trouble announced itself with sirens or shouting. It slipped in through the back door, wore expensive cologne, and ordered top-shelf whiskey without looking at the price. I'd been waitressing there for 6 months, long enough to recognize the difference between men who had money and men who had power. The man who walked in at 11:30 had both. I was balancing 3 martinis on a tray when the entire room seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they softened, became careful. Even the jazz piano in the corner seemed to quiet, though Marcus's fingers never stopped moving across the keys. He was tall, that was the first thing I noticed. Well over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled out his black suit like it had been tailored to intimidate. Dark hair, slightly too long, brushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble if marble could look that dangerous. But it was his eyes that made my hands tremble just slightly on the tray. Cold, assessing, the color of smoke before a fire. They swept the room with the casual authority of a man who owned everything he looked at, and when they landed on me, I felt the impact like a physical thing. I looked away quickly, focusing on delivering the martinis to table 7 without spilling them. My heart was doing something stupid in my chest, a wild, a rhythmic flutter that had nothing to do with the usual Friday night rush. "Who is that?" I whispered to Jade when I reached the bar. She glanced over, then immediately busied herself with wiping down the counter. "That's Dante Moretti." The name meant nothing to me, but the way she said it low, almost reverent, told me everything I needed to know. Should I be worried? Only if you're smart. She slid 3 more drinks onto my tray without meeting my eyes. Table 12. And Mira? Don't stare. Men like that notice everything. But I had already stared. And he had already noticed. Table 12 was directly in his line of sight. I could feel his gaze following me as I moved through the dim, velvet-draped room, past leather booths and crystal chandeliers that caught the light like frozen tears. The Velvet Rouge cultivated an atmosphere of old-world decadence, all burgundy and gold and shadows deep enough to hide secrets. I'd always felt safe here, protected by the crowd, by the dim lighting, by my own insignificance. That feeling died the moment I set the drinks down and turned to find him watching me with the focused intensity of a predator selecting prey. "Excuse me, sweetheart." The voice came from behind me, thick with alcohol and entitlement. I turned to find Derek Castellano leaning back in his chair, his expensive watch catching the light as he beckoned me closer. He was a regular, the kind who tipped well and thought that gave him the right to certain liberties. "Another round for my friends," he said, his eyes traveling slowly down my body in a way that made my skin crawl. "And maybe you join us after your shift?" "I don't think so," I said pleasantly, professionally. "But I'll get those drinks for you." His hand shot out and caught my wrist. "Don't be unfriendly, beautiful. I'm just trying to show you a good time." I'd dealt with handsy customers before. The key was to stay calm, stay professional, extract yourself, without causing a scene. I smiled the smile that never reached my eyes and tried to pull away gently. His grip tightened. Derek let go. His other hand landed on my waist, fingers pressing into the curve of my hip through my black dress. "Just one drink. What's the harm?" The rest of his sentence died in his throat. Dante Moretti was standing beside our table. I hadn't seen him move. One moment he'd been across the room, the next he was there, towering over us both with an expression that made the temperature drop 10 degrees. "Remove your hand." His voice was low, almost conversational. But there was something underneath it, something that sounded like grinding metal and promised violence. Derek's face went pale, then red. "This is a private conversation. I don't repeat myself." The room had gone completely silent. Even Marcus had stopped playing. Derek's hand fell away from my waist like I'd burned him. But his pride, or his stupidity, made him stand up. He was tall, athletic, the kind of man who'd probably never been truly challenged in his life. He looked like a child next to Dante Moretti. "Listen, I don't know who you think you are." Dante moved. It was faster than a man his size should be able to move. One moment Derek was standing, puffing out his chest. The next, his wrist was caught in Dante's grip, bent at an angle that made me wince. "She's not on the menu," Dante said quietly. Then he twisted. The crack echoed through the silent room like a gunshot. Derek's scream came after high, agonized, cut off when 2 men in dark suits materialized from the shadows and grabbed him, dragging him toward the back exit before anyone could process what had happened. I stood frozen, my tray still clutched in my hands, staring at the empty space where Derek had been. Dante turned to me. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, lips that looked cruel until they softened just slightly at the corners. And those eyes. God, those eyes. They were gray, I realized. Storm gray. The color of danger and salvation all at once. Are you hurt? His voice had changed. Still deep, still commanding, but somehow gentler. I shook my head. I didn't trust my voice. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away and straighten the strap of my dress that had twisted during Derek's grab. His fingers brushed my shoulder, and I felt that touch everywhere. What's your name? Mira. It came out as a whisper. Mira. He repeated it like he was tasting it, memorizing it. Then he smiled, a small, dangerous thing that made my stomach flip. You should be more careful who you serve. He turned and walked back to his table, leaving me standing there with my heart trying to break through my ribs. I had no idea who Dante Moretti was. I had no idea what I'd just witnessed. But as I watched him settle back into his booth, watched him lift his whiskey glass in a small, private salute aimed directly at me, I knew with absolute certainty that my life had just changed forever, and I had no idea if that was salvation or damnation. I dropped the tray. It clattered to the floor, scattering ice and glass across the hardwood. The sound shattered whatever spell had fallen over the room, and suddenly everything was moving again, conversations resuming, Marcus's fingers finding the piano keys, Jade rushing over with a broom and a look that said, "We'll talk about this later." But I couldn't move, couldn't look away from Dante Moretti's table, where he sat with two other men, deep in conversation that looked casual but felt anything but. Mira, Jade's hand on my arm. Clean this up and take your break. Now. I nodded mechanically, dropping to my knees to gather the larger pieces of broken glass. My hands were shaking. I couldn't make them stop. Dante Moretti had broken a man's wrist for touching me, not pushing him away, not warning him, breaking his wrist. And the worst part, the part that made my stomach twist with something that absolutely was not arousal, was that some dark, hidden part of me had liked it, had felt protected, claimed. I cut my finger on a shard of glass and barely felt it. Come on. Jade hauled me up, dragging me toward the back hallway that led to the employee break room. Once we were alone, she shoved me into a chair and thrust a first aid kit at me. What the hell were you thinking? I wasn't. Derek grabbed me. I didn't. Not Derek. Jesus, Derek's an asshole, everyone knows that. I'm talking about him. She jerked her head toward the dining room. Do you have any idea who Dante Moretti is? I wrapped a bandage around my finger, focusing on the small, manageable pain instead of the chaos in my chest. You said his name like I should, so tell me. Jade sat down across from me, her expression somewhere between worried and terrified. The Moretti family controls half this city. Shipping, real estate, construction, and all the things that happen in the dark that no one talks about. Dante's the heir. His father, Lorenzo, runs the east side, but everyone knows Dante's the real power now. Mafia. The word hung in the air between us, unspoken but deafening. Oh my God. I pressed my unbandaged hand to my mouth. Oh my God, Yeah. Jade's voice was grim. And he just made a very public statement about you, in a room full of people who will absolutely talk about it. What kind of statement? She looked at me like I was being deliberately obtuse. The kind that says you're under his protection, which means you're either about to become very safe or very, very complicated. I stood up, pacing the tiny break room. This is insane. He doesn't even know me. I'm nobody, just a waitress trying to pay off student loans and keep my apartment. I don't have anything to do with whatever world he's from. You do now. The knock on the door made us both jump. Marcus stuck his head in, his usually jovial face serious. Mira, table 14 wants you. My blood went cold. Which table is? His table. Marcus's expression was apologetic. And when Dante Moretti asks for something, you don't say no. Jade grabbed my hand. You don't have to. Yes, she does. Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. Trust me on this. The only thing worse than going over there is refusing. I walked back into the dining room on legs that didn't feel entirely connected to my body. Table 14 was in the far corner, the best table, with high-backed leather seats and a perfect view of both the entrance and the entire room. Strategic. Of course it was strategic. Men like Dante Moretti didn't sit with their backs to doors. He was alone now. The other two men had vanished, and he sat with a crystal tumbler of amber liquid, watching me approach with those storm-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through skin and bone to all the secrets I kept buried. Sit. It wasn't a request. I glanced around. Several customers were trying not to obviously stare at us. I'm working. Not anymore. Not tonight. He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit, Mira. Hearing my name in his voice did something to me. Something dangerous. Something I absolutely could not afford to feel. I sat. Up close, in the low golden light of the corner booth, he was even more devastating. There was a small scar above his left eyebrow, barely visible. His hands resting on the table were elegant but marked scarred knuckles that told stories of violence. He wore a gold watch that probably cost more than my entire year's rent, and a ring on his right hand with a crest I didn't recognize. Are you afraid of me? His voice was low, intimate, like we were the only two people in the world. I should have lied. Should have said yes. Should have played it safe. I don't know yet. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Respect? Honest. I like that. What do you want? The question came out harder than I intended. Fear made me brave or stupid. Why did you ask for me? He took a slow sip of his drink, never breaking eye contact. Because men like Derek Castellano think they can take whatever they want. And I wanted to make it clear that you're not available for the taking. I'm not anyone's property. No, he agreed, and his slight smile was the most dangerous thing I'd ever seen. You're not. But you're under my protection now, whether you want it or not. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught the scent of him expensive cologne underlaid with something darker, something that reminded me of smoke and whiskey and danger. You were in trouble. I removed the trouble. That's all. That's all? You broke his wrist. I could have done much worse. His voice went cold. I wanted to. The admission hung between us, raw and honest and terrifying. Why? I whispered. He studied me for a long moment, and I felt like he was cataloging every detail the way I held myself, the pulse hammering in my throat, the fear and fascination warring in my eyes. I haven't decided yet, he finally said. Then he stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. Someone will drive you home tonight. Don't argue. He walked away, leaving a $100 bill on the table for a drink he'd barely touched. I sat there, trembling, as Jade appeared beside me. Mira, she said quietly, be careful. Men like him don't protect people for free. Eventually, they collect. I watched Dante Moretti disappear into the night, surrounded by shadows that seemed to bow to him, and I wondered what price I'd just agreed to pay without ever saying yes. The car was waiting outside when my shift ended. Not a car. A vehicle. Sleek, black, with windows tinted dark enough to hide sins and secrets. It idled at the curb like a predator, and standing beside it was a man built like a wall-shaved head, expressionless face, hands clasped in front of him in a way that said security or bodyguard or possibly executioner. Miss Caldwell. His voice was surprisingly soft for someone his size. I'm Vincent. Mr. Moretti asked me to see you home safely. I stood on the sidewalk, my coat pulled tight against the October chill, and seriously considered running. That's not necessary. I take the train. With respect, Miss Caldwell, it wasn't a request. Vincent opened the back door. The interior was all black leather and subtle lighting, more luxurious than my entire apartment. Please. Jade had already left, shooting me a worried glance and a whispered, text me when you get home, before disappearing down the street. Marcus was locking up. I was alone with a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. I got in the car. Vincent drove in silence, navigating the city streets with the kind of precision that suggested military training. I stared out the window, watching familiar neighborhoods slide past, and tried to process what my life had become in the span of a single shift. This morning, I'd been nobody, invisible. Just another 26-year-old trying to survive in a city that ate people like me for breakfast. Now, I was being driven home in a car that cost more than I'd make in 5 years by a bodyguard sent by a mafia boss who'd broken a man's wrist for touching me. How does he know where I live? The question was out before I could stop it. Vincent's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Mr. Moretti knows everything he needs to know. That should have terrified me. It did terrify me. But underneath the fear was something else, a traitorous flutter of intrigue, of dark fascination. We pulled up in front of my building, a converted brownstone in a neighborhood that was gentrifying but not quite there yet. Graffiti still decorated some walls. The bodega on the corner had bars on the windows. It was home, but it suddenly felt shabby, exposed, compared to the world I'd just glimpsed. Thank you, I said, reaching for the door handle. Miss Caldwell. Vincent's voice stopped me. Mr. Moretti wanted me to give you this. He handed me a small black business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed with silver lettering. Just a name, Dante Moretti, and a phone number. He said if you need anything. Anything at all. I took the card, feeling the weight of it in my palm. Tell him thank you. For tonight. Vincent nodded. He'll be pleased to hear it. I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment, unlocked the 4 locks I'd installed when I first moved in, and finally allowed myself to breathe. My apartment was small, a studio with a Murphy bed, a kitchen the size of a closet, and a bathroom that required strategic planning to use. But it was mine, paid for with my own money, decorated with thrift store finds and clearance art prints. Safe. Normal. I dropped my purse on the tiny kitchen counter and pulled out the black card. Dante Moretti. Even his name sounded dangerous. Italian. Old money and older sins. I should throw the card away, should pretend tonight never happened, go back to my invisible life, forget the way his eyes had burned when they looked at me. Instead, I put the card in my wallet. I was in the shower, letting hot water try to wash away the tension, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Did Vincent get you home safely? My heart stopped, then started again at double speed. It was past 2 in the morning. Most of the city was asleep, but Dante Moretti was awake, making sure I'd gotten home, and somehow that felt more intimate than any touch. I stood there, dripping water onto my bathroom floor, and debated not responding. Pretending I was asleep, maintaining some kind of boundary. Yes, thank you. The response came immediately. Good. Lock your doors. This isn't a safe neighborhood for a woman alone. I should have been offended. Should have told him I'd been taking care of myself just fine before he broke into my life like a wrecking ball in a tailored suit. I have 4 locks. Not enough. I wrapped a towel around myself and walked to my window, looking down at the street. The black car was gone. The street was empty, except for a homeless man sleeping in a doorway and a couple walking past, pressed close together against the cold. Are you having me watched? The 3 dots indicating he was typing appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Would you prefer I didn't? Yes. No. I didn't know. I don't understand why you're doing this. Because Derek Castellano has friends. Because you made an impression tonight, standing there without fear even though you should have been terrified. Because I wanted to. That last line hit me in the chest. Honest. Raw. I didn't ask for protection. The best things in life are rarely asked for. They simply arrive. I sat on my bed, phone clutched in my hand, and stared at those words until they blurred. I don't know anything about your world. Good. Keep it that way. Then why? Go to sleep, Mira. Tomorrow is Sunday. Your day off, I believe. The fact that he knew my schedule should have sent me running, should have made me block his number, quit my job, maybe leave the city entirely. How do you know that? I know everything about you. Your schedule. Your apartment. The fact that you're standing by your window right now, instead of sleeping like you should be. I jumped back from the window like it had burned me, my heart in my throat. Another text came through. The curtains are thin. You should replace them. Then, good night, Mira. Sweet dreams. I yanked the curtains closed, double-checked all 4 locks, and stood in the middle of my apartment, shaking. Dante Moretti knew where I lived, what I did, when I worked, and I still had his number in my phone. Still felt that dangerous flutter when I thought about the way he'd said my name. I climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and told myself I would delete his number in the morning. I was lying, and I think we both knew it. Sunday morning arrived with gray skies and the kind of cold that seeped into bones. I made coffee, tried to grade papers for the online tutoring gig I did on the side, and failed spectacularly to stop thinking about storm gray eyes and broken wrists and text messages that felt like possession disguised as protection. At noon, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw flowers. An enormous bouquet of white roses, held by a delivery man who looked bored and cold. Delivery for Mira Caldwell. I opened the door, accepted the crystal vase, actual crystal, heavy and expensive, and searched for a card. There wasn't one. There didn't need to be. White roses. Pure. Innocent. Except there was nothing innocent about the way my hands trembled as I set them on my counter, or the way I pulled out my phone and typed a message I absolutely should not send. Thank you for the roses. His response was immediate. They're beautiful. Like you. I should have told him to stop. Should have established boundaries. Made it clear that whatever he thought was happening between us couldn't happen. This is dangerous. Most worthwhile things are. I stared at my phone, at those words and felt something shift inside me. A wall cracking, a defense crumbling. I don't even know you. Then have dinner with me. Tonight. No, that was the only sane answer. The only safe answer. I can't. Why? Because you're dangerous. Because you break people without blinking. Because every instinct I have is screaming at me to run. Because I want to say yes. Because I'm smart enough to know better. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. When his response finally came, it wasn't what I expected. Tomorrow night, then. I'll have Vincent pick you up at 7. Wear something comfortable. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. He was right. Damn him, he was right. One dinner. I promise I won't bite. Then, after a pause, unless you ask, I threw my phone onto my bed and spent the next hour trying to convince myself I hadn't just agreed to have dinner with a mafia boss. Monday at the Velvet Rouge was strange. Derek Castellano's table remained empty. Several of his usual crowd came in. But they kept their distance, their eyes skittering away from me like I was marked with something dangerous. Jade pulled me aside during a lull. You're the talk of the city, you know. Or at least the parts of the city that matter. What are people saying? That Dante Moretti claimed you. That you're either the luckiest woman alive or the most doomed. She studied my face. The roses were a nice touch, I heard. How did you... Mira, when Dante Moretti sends flowers, people notice. The florist probably called 6 people before the delivery guy even left the shop. She grabbed my hand. Be careful. Men like him, they don't have relationships. They have possessions. It's just dinner. No dinner with Dante Moretti is just anything. She was right. I knew she was right. At 6:30, I went home and stared at my closet like it held answers. Wear something comfortable, he'd said. I chose a simple black dress, fitted but not tight, hem at my knee, long sleeves. Professional enough to feel like armor, attractive enough to not be an insult. I left my dark hair down, applied minimal makeup, and told myself I looked calm. My reflection called me a liar. Vincent arrived at exactly 7, standing at my door in the same dark suit, with the same unreadable expression. Miss Caldwell, you look lovely. Where are we going? Mr. Moretti asked me not to spoil the surprise. The car headed north. Out of the city center and into neighborhoods, I rarely visited old money areas where brownstones became mansions and streetlights looked like something from a period drama. We pulled up in front of a building that took my breath away. It was a mansion, but calling it that felt inadequate. 4 stories of cream-colored stone, with wrought iron balconies and windows that glowed warm gold against the darkening sky. A fountain stood in the circular driveway, water cascading over marble angels. This is his home? My voice was barely a whisper. One of them. Vincent opened my door. Mr. Moretti is waiting inside. The front door opened before we reached it, and Dante stood there, backlit by chandelier light. He'd shed the suit jacket, white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that were corded with muscle and marked with scars. Dark slacks, no tie. He looked more relaxed than he had at the restaurant, but no less dangerous. Mira. My name on his lips was a prayer and a curse. Come in. I stepped past him into a foyer that belonged in a museum, marble floors, sweeping staircase, artwork that was probably original and priceless. Your home is beautiful. Thank you. Though home is a generous word, it's where I sleep when I'm not working. He gestured toward a hallway. Dinner's this way. I hope you like Italian. He led me through rooms that made my entire apartment look like a closet, a library with floor-to-ceiling books, a sitting room with furniture that was definitely antique, a hallway lined with portraits of severe-looking men who all had Dante's eyes. We ended up in a dining room with a table that could seat 20, but only 2 places were set at one end, close together. I didn't want this to feel formal, he said, pulling out my chair. I wanted us to talk. About what? He smiled, that dangerous, slight curve of lips that made my stomach flutter. Everything. You. Me. Why I broke Derek Castellano's wrist for touching you. He sat beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, and poured wine from a bottle that probably cost more than my rent. 2 dangerous dinners, he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his, my hand steady even though my heart was racing, to surviving them. His laugh was low, rich, and entirely unexpected. And that's when I realized the most dangerous thing about Dante Moretti wasn't his power, or his violence, or his world of shadows. It was the fact that when he laughed, I wanted to hear it again, and again, and that want was going to destroy me. Dinner was perfect. Not just the food, though. The pasta was handmade. The wine was exquisite. And the tiramisu tasted like sin, but the conversation. Dante asked questions and actually listened to my answers. About my degree in literature. My dream of teaching. The online tutoring I did to make ends meet while serving drinks at night. Why the Velvet Rouge? He asked, refilling my wine glass. You could teach. Find something safer. Teaching positions require experience I don't have yet. And the Rouge pays better than most places. I met his eyes. Plus, until Friday night, no one ever broke anyone's wrist on my behalf. His expression darkened. He deserved worse. Why? Because he touched me? Men touch waitresses all the time. It's demeaning and wrong, but it doesn't usually end in violence. It does when they touch something of mine. There it was. That possessive edge that should have sent me running. I'm not yours. Not yet. He said it calmly, like it was inevitable. Like I was the tide and he was the moon eventually. I would have no choice but to respond to his pull. I should have argued, should have left. Instead, I asked the question that had been burning in my chest since Friday night. Who are you, really? Jade told me your name, told me about your family, but I want to hear it from you. Dante leaned back in his chair, wine glass cradled in his scarred hands, and studied me with those storm gray eyes. What do you want to know? The truth. The truth is complicated. Try me. He was silent for a long moment, and I watched him war with himself, deciding how much to reveal, how much to hide. Finally, he spoke. My family has controlled certain interests in this city for 3 generations. Shipping, mostly, real estate, investments. He paused. And the things that happen in the shadows that keep those interests profitable. You mean crime? I mean business. The kind that exists outside the law because the law was never designed to accommodate people like us. His voice held no apology, no shame. My father, Lorenzo, built an empire. I inherited it, and I protect it. By breaking people's wrists? When necessary. He leaned forward, and I felt the intensity of his focus, like heat. Derek Castellano works for the Vitali family. They're rivals. He was in my city, in a business I have interests in, putting his hands on a woman under my roof. That wasn't about you specifically, Mira. That was about sending a message. But it became about me. Yes. His hand moved across the table. Not quite touching mine, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of it. It became about you the moment I saw you. And I can't explain that. I've never been able to explain the things I want versus the things I should want. What do you want? His eyes darkened. Dangerous question. You said we were here to talk about everything. I want to know why you're not afraid of me. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. Everyone else is. Even the men who work for me. They respect me, but they fear me too. You should be terrified. Instead, you're sitting here arguing with me. Maybe I'm stupid. You're not stupid. He trailed off, then stood abruptly. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led me through the mansion, up the sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor, down a hallway lined with more severe portraits, and finally to a door he unlocked with a key from his pocket. The room beyond was a study, but not like any study I'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, lights stretching to the horizon like fallen stars. A massive desk dominated one side, covered in papers and laptops, and what looked like architectural blueprints. But it was the other side of the room that made me stop breathing. Weapons. A wall of them. Guns mounted in glass cases. Knives arranged by size. Even a sword that looked medieval and probably was. This is who I am, Dante said quietly, standing beside me. This is the truth you wanted. I'm a man who solves problems with violence when words fail, who has killed to protect what's mine, who will kill again without hesitation if someone threatens the people I care about. I should have run. Should have called Vincent and demanded to be taken home. Instead, I turned to face him. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand. Before this goes any further, he moved closer, and I could see the conflict in his eyes, want versus should, desire versus duty. I am not a good man, Mira. I will never be a good man. And if you stay in my world, you'll see things that will haunt you. You'll know things that will change you. Is that why you sent the roses? Why you asked me to dinner? To scare me away? I asked you to dinner because I can't stop thinking about you. The admission was raw, honest, devastating. Because every instinct I have says you're dangerous for me, but I don't care. Because when Derek Castellano touched you, I wanted to kill him. Not injure, kill. He was close enough now that I could feel the heat of him, smell the whiskey on his breath. That should terrify you, he said softly. The fact that a man you barely know wanted to commit murder on your behalf. It does terrify me. I looked up at him, at this beautiful, dangerous man who was showing me his monsters and waiting for me to run. But not in the way you think. Then how? Because part of me liked it. Part of me felt. I struggled for words. Protected, claimed, special. And I don't know what that says about me. His hand came up, cupped my face with a gentleness that contradicted every weapon on that wall. It says you're perfect, he whispered. Then his phone buzzed sharp, insistent, destroying the moment. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed, hardened. I have to take this. His voice was cold, professional, the vulnerability of moments before, completely erased. Vincent will take you home. What's wrong? He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Real, genuine fear. Someone just tried to kill my father. The drive back to my apartment was silent. Vincent said nothing, but I could feel the tension radiating from him, jaw clenched, hands tight on the wheel, eyes constantly checking mirrors like he expected an attack at any moment. I wanted to ask questions. Wanted to know if Dante's father was alive, if Dante was safe, if the danger that had just crashed into his world would reach out and touch me too. But Vincent's expression said this wasn't the time. He walked me to my door, checked my apartment before letting me inside, and paused in the doorway. Lock everything. Don't open the door for anyone. Mr. Moretti will contact you when he can. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the roses Dante had sent and the memory of his hand on my face and the terror in his eyes when that call came through. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, phone clutched in my hand, waiting for a text that didn't come. At 3 a.m., I gave up and made coffee, standing at my window and staring at the city lights. Was he out there somewhere? Was he hurt? Was he? My phone buzzed. I'm okay. Father is stable. Situation contained. Relief hit me so hard I had to sit down. What happened? The response took several minutes. Someone put a bomb in his car. He survived because he forgot his briefcase and went back inside. Whoever did this is sending a message. To who? To me. My hands trembled as I typed. Why you? Because I'm the one who's been consolidating power, making changes my father's enemies don't like. This was a warning. Did they warn the right person? His response was immediate. No. They made a mistake. And now I'm going to show them what happens when you threaten my family. The cold fury in those words should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something else. Something protective. Something that made me want to be there. To make sure he didn't destroy himself in his quest for revenge. Please be careful. Always. Go to sleep, Mira. I'll see you soon. But sleep wouldn't come. I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, and watched dawn break over the city. The Velvet Rouge was closed Tuesday night, some kind of private event. I was relieved. I wasn't ready to face the questions, the knowing looks, the whispers about Dante Moretti's new obsession. Wednesday, Jade pulled me aside the moment I arrived for my shift. Have you heard? Heard what? The Vitali family. 3 of their warehouses burned down last night. Millions in damages. They're saying it was electrical fires, but everyone knows. It was Dante, I finished quietly. Jade nodded. Retaliation for the hit on his father. The city's on edge. There's going to be war, Mira, and you're right in the middle of it. I'm not in the middle of anything. I'm just the woman he broke Derek Castellano's wrist for, the woman he sent roses to, the woman he took to his home. Jade's voice dropped. Everyone knows, Mira, and that makes you a target. The words settled over me like ice water. I'd been so focused on Dante, on the pull between us, on the dangerous attraction that defied logic, that I hadn't considered the implications. If his enemies wanted to hurt him, what better way than through someone he'd publicly claimed? I need to talk to him, I said. Good luck. He's been unreachable for 2 days, but as if summoning him with thought alone. My phone buzzed. Are you working tonight? Yes. Vincent will be outside. If anything feels wrong, you go with him immediately. No questions. What's happening? I'm cleaning up a mess. It might get loud. Don't. Trust me, Mira. I won't let anything happen to you. The night was tense. Several regulars didn't show. The ones who did spoke in hushed voices and left early. Even the music seemed muted, like Marcus was afraid to play too loudly. At 10:30, the door opened. Dante walked in, flanked by two men I hadn't seen before. He wore all black, black suit, black shirt, black tie, no color except for the red stain on his cuff that might have been wine but definitely wasn't. Blood. He had blood on his sleeve. Our eyes met across the room, and the air between us crackled with something electric and terrifying. He said something to his men, then walked directly toward me. Break room. Now. It wasn't a request. I followed him down the back hallway, my heart in my throat. When we were alone, he turned to face me, and I saw the truth written in every line of his body. He'd hurt someone tonight. Maybe killed them. Are you okay? I whispered. He laughed a bitter, broken sound. I should be asking you that. You're the one who's about to get dragged into a war you didn't start. What happened? I found the man who planted the bomb. He confessed everything before I let him die. Dante's voice was flat, empty. The Vitali family paid him. Marco Vitali ordered the hit personally. So what now? Now I make sure they never threaten my family again. He stepped closer, and I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of what he'd done. But first, I needed to see you, to make sure you were safe. Vincent's outside. Vincent can't stop a bullet. His hand came up, cupped my face the way it had in his study. I need you to leave the city. Tonight. I'll set you up somewhere safe until this is over. No. His eyes widened slightly. Mira, I'm not running. If I leave, it looks like I'm important to you. That makes me more valuable as a target, not less. I covered his hand with mine. And I'm not leaving you alone in this. You don't understand what you're saying. Then explain it to me. Stop trying to protect me from the truth and just tell me. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled me into his arms sudden, desperate, like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. If they kill you to hurt me, he whispered against my hair, I will burn this entire city to the ground. I held him, this dangerous man with blood on his sleeves and murder in his eyes, and whispered back, then don't let them kill me. His phone buzzed. He pulled back, checked it, and his expression went ice cold. Marco Vitali just asked for a meeting. Tomorrow night, neutral ground. Are you going? Yes. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. If I'm already a target, hiding won't save me. But showing up on your arm? That sends a different message. That says I'm not afraid. I met his eyes. And maybe that's the message they need to hear. Dante stared at me like I'd just offered to walk into hell beside him. Which, I supposed, I had. You're insane, he said finally. Probably. Then he kissed me. Hard, desperate, claiming. And I kissed him back, tasting whiskey and danger, and the promise of destruction. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Tomorrow night, he said. You stay beside me the entire time. You don't speak unless spoken to. And if I tell you to run, you run. Deal. And Mira? His voice dropped to a whisper. Wear red. I want them to see you coming. The dress arrived at noon the next day. Not delivered by a bored courier, but by Vincent himself, holding a garment bag and wearing an expression that might have been concern. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring this. Inside was the most beautiful and most dangerous dress I'd ever seen. Red, blood red, silk that moved like water, with a neckline that plunged just enough to be daring and a slit up one thigh that promised violence in the way it would move when I walked. Elegant, expensive, a declaration of war disguised as fashion. There was a note, handwritten in bold, slashing script. Tonight, you're not a waitress or a student. You're mine, and I want everyone to see it. D. I should have sent it back. Should have told him this was too much, too fast, too dangerous. Instead, I called Jade. I need you to do my makeup, and I need you to not ask questions. She arrived at 5, took one look at the dress, and whistled low. Jesus, Mira, where are you going? To a meeting with the man who tried to kill Dante's father. Her hand froze halfway to my face. You're joking. I wish I was. This is insane. You know that, right? This is absolutely certifiably insane. I know. She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed and picked up her makeup brushes. Well, if you're going to walk into a lion's den, you might as well look stunning doing it. An hour later, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Jade had done something dark and smoky with my eyes, making them look mysterious, dangerous. My lips were the exact shade of the dress, deep red, bold, unafraid. My dark hair fell in waves over my shoulders. Diamond earrings I'd never seen before sat in a small box beside the dress, another gift from Dante. I looked like I belonged in his world. That thought should have terrified me. Vincent arrived at 7 exactly, and if he was surprised by my transformation, his expression didn't show it. "Miss Caldwell, you look formidable." That was the goal. The drive was longer this time, out of the city entirely, and into the countryside where estates hid behind stone walls and iron gates. We pulled up to what looked like an old mansion, Tudor style, all dark wood and leaded windows, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably looked beautiful in daylight. In the darkness, they looked like a graveyard. Dante was waiting outside, surrounded by 6 men who all wore suits and expressions that said security. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes: heat, possession, and something that might have been fear. "Mira." He crossed to the car, opened my door himself, and helped me out. His hand was warm and steady on mine. "You look like I belong here? Like you're going to start a different kind of war." His thumb brushed across my knuckles. "Stay close to me. Don't speak unless Marco addresses you directly. And if shooting starts..." "It won't." I squeezed his hand. "This is neutral ground, right? There are rules. Rules only work when people follow them." But he offered his arm, and I took it, letting him lead me toward the mansion's entrance. The inside was all dark wood and old money paintings that belonged in museums, furniture that had survived centuries, and enough crystal chandeliers to light up a ballroom. We walked through a series of rooms, each more opulent than the last, until we reached a dining room where a man waited. Marco Vitali was older than I expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face that had once been handsome but was now marked by time and cruelty. He sat at the head of a table that could seat 30, flanked by 4 men who looked like they killed people for a living, which they probably did. "Dante." Marco's voice was smooth, cultured. "Thank you for coming. And you brought a guest. How unexpected." "Mira, this is Marco Vitale." "Marco, this is Mira Caldwell." "Charming." Marco's eyes swept over me with the casual assessment of a man evaluating property. "You have excellent taste, Dante. Though I must say, bringing her here was either very brave or very foolish." "I choose brave," I said before I could stop myself. The room went silent. Marco's eyebrows rose. "She speaks. How delightful. Tell me, Miss Caldwell, do you know what your boyfriend does for a living?" "I know enough." "Do you? Do you know how many men he's killed? How many lives he's destroyed? The blood on his hands? I know that someone tried to kill his father, and I know you're responsible." My voice was steady, even though my heart was trying to beat out of my chest. "So perhaps we should discuss blood on hands very carefully." Marco laughed, a cold, amused sound. "I like her, Dante. She has fire. Of course, fire burns. You should be careful she doesn't get consumed. Is there a point to this meeting?" Dante's voice was ice. "Or did you just want to admire my date?" "The point, young Moretti, is to discuss terms. Your retaliation for my father's accident." "Assassination attempt," Dante corrected, "was excessive. 3 warehouses, millions in damages. My associates are displeased." "Then they shouldn't have tried to kill Lorenzo Moretti. Your father is old, weak. His time is ending, and you know it." Marco leaned forward. "The city is changing, Dante. New alliances are forming. The old ways are dying. You can either join the future or die with the past." "What are you proposing?" "Partnership. Your shipping routes, my distribution network. We divide the city, share the profits, and end this pointless conflict." Dante was silent for a long moment, his hand still holding mine under the table. "And if I refuse, then we go to war. Real war. Not skirmishes, not burned warehouses. War that will leave bodies in the streets and blood on your conscience." Marco smiled, including hers. His eyes flicked to me, and I felt the threat like a physical blow. Dante's hand tightened on mine, his whole body coiled like a spring about to snap. "Touch her," he said quietly, "and I will end your entire bloodline. Every Vitali breathing will stop. Your name will be erased from history, and I will make sure you watch it happen before I kill you." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Marco's smile never wavered. Such passion. How romantic. "But passion makes men stupid, Dante, and stupid men make mistakes. Is that what you think? That I'm stupid? I think you brought the woman you love into a room with your enemies. So yes, stupid." Dante stood, pulling me up with him. "We're done here. Think about my offer," Marco called as we turned to leave. "You have 72 hours. After that, the city bleeds." We made it to the car before Dante exploded. What were you thinking? Speaking to him like that? You could have been killed. But I wasn't. And I made a point. What point? That I'm not afraid. That we're not afraid. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. You wanted them to see me, Dante. To see that I'm real. That I matter. Well, now they know. Now they understand exactly what they're threatening. He stared at me, breathing hard. And then he kissed me fierce, desperate, claiming me in a way that had nothing to do with possession and everything to do with fear. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. If anything happens to you, it won't. You won't let it. How can you have so much faith in me? Because I see you. All of you. The violence and the protection and the man underneath who's terrified of caring about something he could lose. His laugh was broken. You see too much. Or, exactly enough. Vincent drove us back to the city in tense silence. When we reached my building, Dante walked me upstairs, checked my apartment, and stood in my tiny kitchen like he was trying to memorize every detail. I'm stationing guards outside, he said. 24 hours. Until this is resolved. Don't. Not negotiable. Marco made a threat tonight. I take all threats seriously. Okay. He looked surprised. Just okay? You're trying to keep me safe. I'm not going to argue with that. I stepped closer. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't do anything stupid. Don't let revenge make you reckless. I put my hand over his heart. Because if you die trying to protect me, I'll never forgive you. He caught my hand, brought it to his lips. Then I'll stay alive. For you. He left at midnight. And I stood at my window with the new curtains he'd had delivered, watching his car disappear into the night. 72 hours, until Marco's deadline. 3 days to prevent a war. And I had no idea how we were going to survive it. The call came at 3 a.m. I jerked awake, heart pounding, phone already in my hand. Unknown number. Hello? Mira Caldwell. The voice was male, unfamiliar, cold. You have something Marco Vitali wants. Ice flooded my veins. I don't know what you're talking about. Dante Moretti's heart. His weakness. Walk away from him. Leave the city, and you'll live. Stay, and we'll make sure your death hurts him more than any bullet could. The line went dead. I sat in the darkness, shaking, and realized with perfect clarity what I should do. I should run. Pack a bag, disappear, save myself and possibly save Dante from making whatever terrible choices my presence would force him to make. I should run. Instead, I called him. He answered on the first ring. Mira? What's wrong? I told him about the call. Every word. And listened to the silence that followed. Pack a bag, he finally said. I'm sending Vincent to get you. You're staying with me until this is over. Don't. It's not a request. They called you at 3 a.m, which means they have your number. If they have your number, they know where you live. You're not safe there anymore. He was right. I hated it, but he was right. Okay. Vincent arrived 20 minutes later with 2 additional guards who swept my apartment before letting me leave. I threw clothes into a bag, grabbed my laptop and phone charger, and took one last look at my tiny home. It felt like goodbye. The drive to Dante's mansion was silent. Dawn was breaking over the city, painting everything gold and pink, beautiful and deceptive. Dante met us at the door, still dressed from the night before, looking like he hadn't slept. The moment I was inside, he pulled me into his arms and just held me. I'm sorry, he whispered against my hair. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Stop. This is Marco Vitali's fault, and we're going to end it. He pulled back to look at me. We? You think I came here to hide? No. I came here to help you figure out how to win this without more bloodshed. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, respect, and something deeper. Something that looked like the terrifying freefall of actually falling in love. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm terrified. But I'm not leaving you. He led me upstairs to a bedroom that was easily 3 times the size of my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens that looked peaceful in the morning light. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, and there was an ensuite bathroom with a tub that could fit 4 people. This is yours, for as long as you need it. He paused in the doorway. I'm across the hall if you need anything. Dante, I caught his hand. What's your plan? For Marco. His jaw tightened. I'm still working on it. Work on it here. With me. Maybe I can help. For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he nodded. Get some sleep first. We'll talk when you wake up. But I couldn't sleep. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and found my way to his study, the room with the weapons on the wall. He was there, standing at the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. When he saw me, he ended the call. You should be resting. I can't. Tell me what's happening. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Marco's moving assets, consolidating power. He's preparing for war, which means he doesn't think I'll accept his partnership offer. Will you? I can't. Partnership with Marco means betraying everything my father built, but refusing means bloodshed. People will die, some of them innocent. His voice was raw with frustration. There's no good choice. I walked to him, took his hand. Then we make a third choice. What third choice? We expose him. Marco tried to kill your father, that's attempted murder. If we had proof, real proof, we could destroy him without firing a shot. Dante stared at me. The man I questioned before he died. He confessed everything, but that confession died with him. I have no proof, but Marco doesn't know that. An idea was forming, dangerous and probably insane. What if we made him think we had proof? Made him panic? He'd either run or attack, or he'd try to negotiate, cover his tracks. And that's when people make mistakes. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his sharp mind clearly working through possibilities. You want to bluff. I want to make him desperate. Desperate people are sloppy. It's risky. Everything about this situation is risky. He turned to face me fully, cupping my face in his hands. How did you become this? This brave, brilliant woman who schemes like she was born to my world. I read a lot of books. Some of them were about strategy. His laugh was soft, almost disbelieving. I'm falling in love with you. You know that, right? The words hit me like lightning. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it because I have to. I'm saying it because it's true. Because 3 days ago, you were just a beautiful waitress I couldn't stop thinking about. And now you're standing in my study, planning strategy against a mafia boss, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Tears burned behind my eyes. Dante, you don't have to say it back. I know this is fast, insane, probably the worst timing in history, but I need you to know. Whatever happens with Marco, whatever happens next, I kissed him, desperate, hungry, pouring every emotion I couldn't articulate into the press of lips and tongue. He responded instantly, backing me against his desk, his hands in my hair, on my waist, everywhere. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, I whispered against his lips, I'm falling too, so don't you dare D on me. Never. His kiss this time was slower, deeper, a promise written in touch and taste. We spent the day planning. Dante made calls, gathered information, assembled a team he trusted. I researched Marco Vitale, his businesses, his properties, his known associates looking for weaknesses. By evening, we had a plan. Risky, dangerous, but possible. Dante would contact Marco, tell him he'd found new evidence about the bombing. He'd offer a trade the evidence for a permanent truce and Marco's voluntary retirement from the city's underworld. It was a bluff. But if Marco believed it, he might panic, might make a mistake. And if he calls our bluff? I asked. Dante's expression went cold. Then we go to war. And I make sure it's the last war he ever sees. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the enormous bed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, and thought about how completely my life had changed in less than a week. A soft knock on my door. Come in. Dante entered, barefoot, wearing just sleep pants, looking vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. I couldn't sleep, he admitted. Kept thinking about tomorrow. About what could go wrong. Me too. Can I stay? Just to sleep. I need to know you're close. I pulled back the covers in answer. He climbed in beside me, and I curled into his warmth, his arm coming around me protectively. Whatever happens tomorrow, I whispered into the darkness. We face it together. Together, he agreed. And for the first time in days, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, I felt safe. The meeting was set for noon at a restaurant Marco owned, Neutral Ground, he'd called it, though everyone knew there was nothing neutral about it. I wore black this time. Armor. Dante had tried to convince me to stay at the mansion, but I'd refused. If this goes wrong, I want to see it coming. We arrived with 8 men, enough for protection, not enough to be an army. Vincent stayed close to me, his hand near his concealed weapon, his eyes scanning everything. Marco was already there, seated at a private table in the back, surrounded by his own men. He smiled when he saw us, cold, calculating. "Dante, Miss Caldwell, please, sit." We sat. Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. "You said you had something to show me," Marco said pleasantly. "Evidence, I believe you called it." "I did." Dante's voice was calm, controlled. "The man who planted the bomb in my father's car? Before he died, he made a full confession. Video recorded. Names, dates, payment records, everything." Marco's expression didn't change. "How unfortunate. For him, the recording is in a secure location, along with copies sent to 3 different attorneys with instructions to release it to the FBI if anything happens to me or my family." Now Marco's eyes narrowed. "That sounds like a threat. It's insurance, but I'm willing to negotiate." "What do you want?" "You leave the city, retire, sell your interest to neutral parties and disappear. Do that, and the recording stays buried." Marco leaned back, studying Dante with the intensity of a chess player analyzing a board. "And if I refuse? Then the FBI investigates you for attempted murder. Your assets get frozen, your empire crumbles, and I'll make sure you watch it happen from a prison cell." The silence stretched, tense and dangerous. Then Marco laughed. "You're bluffing. There is no recording." My heart stopped. "There is," Dante said calmly. "Then show me. Right now. Prove it exists." "The location is secure." "Bullshit. You have nothing. You killed the only witness, and now you're trying to scare me into submission with ghost evidence." Marco leaned forward. "I didn't survive 40 years in this business by being stupid, Dante. And you just made a critical mistake." Around us, Marco's men shifted, hands moving toward concealed weapons. Vincent moved closer to me. "Here's what's going to happen," Marco continued. "You're going to accept my partnership offer. We're going to divide the city peacefully. And you're going to do it because if you don't, everyone you care about dies. Starting with her." 4 guns aimed at me simultaneously. I stopped breathing. Dante's hand tightened on mine, his whole body coiled with lethal tension. "Shoot her," he said quietly, "and you die before her body hits the floor, along with everyone in this room. Perhaps, but she'll still be dead. Is that a trade you're willing to make?" Time slowed. I could see Dante calculating, weighing options, looking for an exit that didn't exist. "I'll accept your offer," he finally said, and I heard the defeat in his voice. "The sacrifice. Excellent. I knew you'd see reason." The explosion shattered the front windows. Everything happened at once. Gunfire, screaming. Vincent tackled me to the floor, his body shielding mine. Dante was moving, weapon drawn, firing at Marco's men. Smoke filled the room, thick and choking. "Go!" Vincent hauled me up, pushing me toward a back exit I hadn't seen. "Move!" I stumbled through smoke and chaos. Vincent's hand on my back, propelling me forward. Behind us, I could hear Dante shouting orders. More gunfire, the sound of breaking glass. We burst through a kitchen, past terrified staff, and out into an alley. A car was waiting black, engine running. Vincent shoved me into the back seat. "Where's Dante?" I grabbed his arm. "We can't leave him. He's right behind us. Now get down and stay down." I ducked low as Vincent climbed into the driver's seat and accelerated hard. 30 seconds later, the passenger door flew open, and Dante dove in, blood streaking his face. "Go, go, go!" Vincent didn't need to be told twice. We peeled out of the alley, tires screaming, as behind us the restaurant erupted in another explosion. What the hell happened? I grabbed Dante's face, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "Whose blood?" "Not mine. I'm fine." He pulled me into his arms, holding tight. "Marco's dead. The blast killed him and 3 of his men. But we didn't." "No, we didn't." Dante's expression was grim. "Someone else attacked. Someone who wanted Marco dead and was willing to risk killing us too." "Who?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Vincent drove us to a safe house on the outskirts of the city, a nondescript building in an industrial area. Inside was sparse but functional. Beds, a kitchen, security monitors. Dante immediately got on the phone, barking orders, gathering information. I sat on a worn couch and tried to process what had just happened. Someone had bombed a meeting between 2 mafia families. Marco Vitali was dead. We'd almost died. And somewhere out there, A new player had just announced themselves in the most violent way possible. Dante finally ended his calls and sank down beside me, exhaustion written in every line of his body. "What now?" I asked quietly. "Now we figure out who our new enemy is, and we end this before more people die." He took my hand. "I'm sorry. I brought you into my world, and it almost got you killed. I chose to be here. Why? Why stay when you could run, could be safe?" I turned to face him fully. This dangerous man who'd somehow become my entire world in less than a week. "Because I love you. Because when those guns were pointed at me, all I could think was that I couldn't leave you, couldn't let you fight alone." Tears burned my eyes. "I know it's insane. I know it's too fast, but it's true." His kiss was desperate, fierce, filled with relief and fear and love. "Say it again," he whispered against my lips. "I love you. Again. I love you, Dante Moretti. Even though you're dangerous and violent and everything I should run from." He stood, pulling me up with him, and backed me toward one of the bedrooms. "Show me," he breathed. "Show me you mean it." So I did. In a safe house on the edge of the city, with danger circling outside and an unknown enemy lurking in the shadows, I gave myself completely to the man who'd broken into my life like a storm. And when we finally collapsed together, tangled and breathless and whole, I knew there was no going back. I was his, and he was mine. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Dante's voice, low and intense, speaking to someone on the phone. Early morning light filtered through thin curtains. I was in his shirt, wrapped in sheets that smelled like him, my body deliciously sore in ways that made me blush remembering last night. He appeared in the doorway, 2 mugs in hand, looking rumpled and beautiful and impossibly mine. "Morning." He handed me coffee, kissed my forehead. "We have a problem." "Of course we do." "The blast that killed Marco?" "It was ordered by his nephew, Antonio Vitale. He's trying to take over the family business and framing me for Marco's death." I sat up, pulling the sheets around me. "Can he do that?" "He's already doing it. Half the city thinks I planted that bomb. The other half is waiting to see what I do next." Dante sat beside me. "I have to make a move. Today." "What kind of move?" "The kind that ends this war permanently. But it's dangerous, Mira, and I need you somewhere safe while I do it." "No." His eyes flashed. "This isn't negotiable." "You're right, it's not. Because I'm not leaving you. Not again. Not ever." I grabbed his face. "Last night I told you I love you. Did you think I meant only when it's safe? Only when it's convenient? I think you're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. And you're the most overprotective man. We're perfect for each other." His laugh was surprised, almost helpless. "How do you do this? Make me laugh when my world is falling apart?" "It's a gift." I kissed him softly. "Now tell me the plan." The plan was risky, but elegant. Dante had called a summit every family, every power player in the city, neutral ground, public location. He would present evidence that Antonio Vitale had killed his own uncle and tried to frame the Moretti family. "Will they believe you?" I asked. "They will when they see the security footage." Vincent's people retrieved it from the restaurant's backup servers. It clearly shows Antonio's men planting the explosives hours before our meeting. "Then why do you need me?" "Because Antonio will deny everything. We'll call the footage fake, and it will become my word against his." Dante took my hands. "But if you're there, standing beside me, if the woman I love publicly supports me, it sends a message. That I'm not the monster they think I am. That I'm worth trusting. You want me to be your character witness. I want you to be my strength. The way you've been since the moment we met. How could I say no to that?" The summit was held at the Grand Continental Hotel, a historic landmark downtown with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and enough security to guard a president. I wore gray, not black, not red, something neutral, professional. Dante wore a dark suit, and despite the tension radiating from him, he looked every inch the powerful leader he was. We walked in together, hand in hand, and I felt the weight of dozens of eyes assessing us. The conference room was filled with men in expensive suits, some I recognized from the Velvet Rouge, others I'd never seen. These were the people who controlled the city's underworld. One wrong word here could start a bloodbath. Antonio Vitale was young, mid-30s, handsome in a cruel way, with his uncle's eyes but none of his cunning. He sneered when he saw us. "The murderer brings his whore." How touching. Dante's hand tightened on mine, but his voice stayed calm. "Be very careful what you say about her." "Or what?" "You'll kill me like you killed my uncle." I didn't kill Marco. You did. The room erupted in murmurs. Prove it. Antonio spat. Vincent stepped forward, tablet in hand. This is security footage from the restaurant. Timestamp 7 a.m. On the day of the bombing, 6 hours before the meeting. He played the video. Crystal clear footage showing 3 men entering the restaurant, planting devices, leaving. Then a second angle showing their faces. All 3 worked for Antonio Vitale. The room went silent. Antonio's face had gone white. That's fake. Doctored. The footage has been verified by independent experts, Dante said calmly. 3 different firms. All confirmed it's authentic. You killed your own uncle to seize power, an older man said, one of the family heads. And you tried to blame Moretti. This is ridiculous. No. What's ridiculous is thinking we wouldn't discover the truth. Dante's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You wanted war, Antonio. You wanted blood. But all you've done is prove you're unfit to lead. The other family heads were nodding, whispering to each other. Antonio looked around, saw his support crumbling, and his hand moved toward his jacket. I didn't think. Just moved. Threw myself in front of Dante as Antonio pulled a gun. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Pain exploded in my shoulder, white-hot and terrible. I hit the floor hard, Dante's arms catching me, his voice screaming my name. Then chaos. Gunfire. Shouting. Vincent and Dante's men taking down Antonio, disarming him, ending the threat. But I barely heard it. Everything was pain and Dante's face above me, terrified in a way I'd never seen. Mira, stay with me. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Hurts, I gasped. I know, baby, I know. Medic! Someone get a fucking medic. Worth it, I whispered. You're worth it. Don't you dare. Don't you dare be noble right now. You're not dying on me. Not dying, just tired. His tears fell on my face. I love you. Do you hear me? I love you and you don't get to leave me. Love you too, I managed. So dramatic. Then the world went soft and dark and warm. I woke in a hospital room. Sunlight streaming through windows. Machines beeping steadily. Dante was asleep in a chair beside my bed, his hand holding mine, looking exhausted and beautiful. I squeezed his hand weakly. His eyes flew open. Mira. Hi. He was at my bedside instantly, hands cupping my face, tears streaming down his. You terrified me. You stopped breathing twice on the way to the hospital. Don't ever do that again. Take a bullet for you. I'd do it 1,000 times. You're insane. You mentioned that. He laughed, wet and broken and relieved. The doctors say you'll be fine. The bullet missed everything vital. You'll need physical therapy, but you'll recover fully. And Antonio? In custody, awaiting trial for Marco's murder and attempted murder of you. His family has disowned him. Dante pressed his forehead to mine. It's over, Mira. The war is over. So now what? Now I spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you never regret saving me. Making sure you never regret choosing my world. I don't regret it, any of it. Marry me. I blinked. What? Marry me. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I almost lost you yesterday, and I won't live without you. So marry me. Be my wife. Let me spend forever protecting you and loving you. And I kissed him, ignoring the pain in my shoulder, pouring every yes in my heart into that kiss. When we broke apart, I whispered, yes. 1,000 times yes. His smile was devastating. I don't have a ring. Don't care. My life is dangerous. I know. You'll never be just a waitress again. Good. I want more. I pulled him closer. I want you. All of you. The danger, the darkness, the love underneath. I want forever, Dante. Then forever is what you'll get. 6 months later, the Velvet Rouge had new ownership. Dante bought it, renovated it, and gave me complete creative control. Now it was half restaurant, half bookstore, my dream brought to life by a man who'd do anything to see me smile. I still wore an apron sometimes, but now it was to serve literary-themed cocktails to customers browsing first editions. Jade was the manager. Marcus still played piano on weekends. And every Friday night, Dante came in, sat at table 14, and watched me work with eyes that still held that same magnetic pull. We got married in his mansion's garden, surrounded by family, his complicated, dangerous family that had somehow become mine. I wore white, he wore black, and when he kissed me, sealing forever, I tasted whiskey and danger and love. My life was different now, complicated, sometimes frightening, but every night, I fell asleep in the arms of a man who'd burned the city down to keep me safe. And every morning, I woke up grateful for the moment a customer grabbed my waist and a mafia boss broke his wrist. Because that violence, that protection, that instant of claiming it had led me here, to love forged in fire, to a forever I never knew I wanted, to Dante. Always Dante. My dangerous, beautiful, impossible love.